Please excuse me while I have just a little sip of my coffee. It's great to have you here today. Thank you for tuning in. Love is supposed to be the distinguishing mark of the believer. Aren't we supposed to love one another? Aren't we supposed to strive for unity, peace? Why is there so much conflict in the religious world? Why is there so much brutal activity in the religious world? Why is there so much sadness and brokenness in the name of religion? James cuts to the heart of the issue when he says in James chapter 4, verses 1, where do the wars and the fightings come from? Where do the quarrels, the disputes among you come from? And then he answers the question, do they not come from your own lusts, your own desires that war within you? Do they not come from your own members? Satan stirs up a lot of things. He speaks to our wives, to our husbands, to our children, and we think we're strong. But Paul urges us, forgive one another, be reconciled to one another. Why? Lest Satan get an advantage. We're not ignorant of his devices. 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11. And the word device, we're not ignorant as to his strategy, his plan of attack. Our tempers get us in trouble, and oftentimes our pride keeps us there. What's the message today? Get right with God. If you're not right with God, how can you be right with the world? Get right with the Lord. If you're not right with God, how can you be right with your spouse, your children, and your friends? The Apostle Paul knew what it was like to have inner conflict. 2 Corinthians 7:5. When we came to Macedonia, the flesh had no rest. We were troubled on every side. Within were fightings, and without were fears. He was giving a report of his missionary experiences through us, Titus and Corinth. And he sends this strongly worded letter. And he said, we found no rest. Fightings within and fears without. Would his work in Corinth be in vain? Would the church he loved respond? Anxious, concerned. How are they going to treat all this? He was fighting a war on two fronts. One on the outside, the other on the inside. One external, the other internal. And he struggled outwardly with his enemies. He tried to kill him time and time again. Inwardly, with his emotions, with his heart. And we fight sometimes outward wars, but oftentimes we have these emotions within our hearts. No one really wants to crucify us today, I guess. But we inwardly have these fears. You know, the word translated fear is the word phobias. It refers to alarm, terror, anxiety. Paul, why were you afraid? Was he afraid? I believe he was. Paul was human, and he experienced fear. And we are afraid at times. Why are you afraid, Paul? Maybe he was afraid of bodily harm. I don't know. But it was tough being a missionary in the first century world. some parts of the world today can be a hazard to your health. Maybe he was afraid of failure. He was haunted by fear that he had run in vain, or that he had labored in vain. Perhaps he was afraid of rejection. His letter to the Corinthians was hard-hidden. Maybe it was too severe. Maybe they would turn against him. Maybe they would reject him. I don't know for sure what he was afraid of. But he was afraid, and he told us so. We all have fears within. We struggle with pride, passion, anger, anxiety, doubt, depression, inferiority. We all have emotions. Fear of the past is common, very destructive. My past is catching up on me. Very, very, very destructive. We're afraid of the past. Paul, what are you afraid of? We face failure. You know, we even think highly successful people are not afraid anymore. Some of the most successful people in the world live their lives afraid, terror, phobias. The most successful people have more to lose. And the higher we climb sometimes, the further we have to fall. I was reading of Winston Churchill the other day, one of the most influential men in the first half of the 20th century. His son Randolph said, I had to talk to him daily. I had to constantly speak with him to reassure my father that his life was not a failure. He had to constantly tell him, Dad, you've done great things. You saved the world here, you've done this, you've done that, you've done the other. You see, only the mediocre are at their best all the time. Mediocrity. And you don't have to be remarkable. And God's not comparing us with others. And we can fail at times without being a failure. Failure doesn't have to be final. And we're free to struggle to be our best. I know a lot of people are afraid of rejection, termination, criticism. The public eye doesn't take a big person to criticize. I want you to know that. But you know what? It still hurts. Just like you, I want to be successful. I want to be liked. I want to be loved. I want to be appreciated. Mike Yaconella said this: the problem with the church today is not corruption. Mike Yaconella. It's not institutionalism. It's more serious than something like the sinister plot, the preacher running off with the organist. He said the problem is pettiness. Blatant pettiness. It's the smallness. I deserve some criticism. I deserve some rebuke. And I need to be held accountable. But we need to stop the smallness. Making me feel small doesn't make you big. We don't need this complex, making everybody around us small, down, criticism. We need to be working together. What for? The goal: reaching the lost, reaching the unrighteous, reconciliation, bringing the world to Jesus Christ for salvation, so that they can have the hope of eternal life. God loves you. He wants you in heaven. He wants you to be strong. He wants you to master your fears. May God bless you. Have a wonderful day.